Hi everyone, I'm Tracy. Welcome to Audubon at Home. And this is Greta and the Giants, and it's inspired by the story of Greta Thunberg's Stand to Save the World. It's by Zoë Tucker and Zoe Persico. There once was a girl who lived at the heart of a beautiful forest. Her name was Greta. One morning, things weren't quite as they should be. Greta stepped out into her yard, and there, huddled together in the shadows of the trees, were all the animals of the forest. A soft, silvery brown wolf stepped forward with his tail low to the ground. "Please help us," he whispered. "The forest is broken, and we don't know where to go. The giants are ruining our home." The giants had always been there for as long as Greta could remember, but now they were worse than ever. They were huge, lumbering oafs, and they were always busy. They chopped down trees to build homes. Then they chopped down more trees and built bigger homes. Their houses grew into towns, and the towns grew into cities, and they built factories and shops and cars and planes. And they worked all day and all night until eventually there was hardly any forest left. But the greedy giants had forgotten how wonderful the forest was. And they didn't see all the little birds and bugs and butterflies and bears that trembled in the shadows. And no one told them to stop because everyone was scared of them. Everyone except for Greta. "Will you help us?" asked the wolf. Greta looked around her. The animals looked tired and sad. She had to help them. But how? Then Greta had an idea. The next morning, Greta went into the middle of the forest and waited for the giants to come. She stood alone holding a big sign, and the sign said, "Stop!" She waited, and she waited. On the first day, the giants didn't see her, and they lumbered on by. And on the second and third, too. But the fourth day, something strange happened. A little boy who had been watching Greta made a sign, and he came and he sat down next to her. He didn't say much, but Greta knew he felt like she did. Soon more people and animals saw what they were doing, and they joined in too. "Look at the sign, save our forest. Our home is on fire. We love our forest. Help! Stop! Action! Listen!" Before long, a huge crowd filled the forest, stretching out to the city and the roads beyond, and they stood together and they waited. And the crowd was so huge that the giants were stopped in their tracks. "Please stop!" Greta cried. "Your greedy behavior is spoiling our home. You've broken the trees and trampled the flowers, and now the bees and the birds have flown away. These animals are homeless, and our forest is dying." After Greta had spoken, everything was silent. But then everyone in the crowd began to shout, "The smoke from your fires is choking the air. Please stop cutting down the trees. You can help plant some new ones. And mend my home. We need to take care of our forest and live together. Will you please try?" they all said. The giants shuffled and they fidgeted and they stomped their feet on the ground. They were embarrassed and a little bit sad. You see, the giants were so busy building, they didn't see what they were doing to the forest or the animals who lived there. The giants felt terrible. "We're sorry," they said, and they promised they would try harder. So from that day and on, the greedy giants weren't so greedy. They slowed down and they learned to sit quietly. And they stopped working all the time and instead took up new hobbies. They stopped chopping down trees and they learned all about gardening and living in the forest. They cooked and they repaired and they tidied and they shared. Sounds a little bit like now. And before long, the forest became more beautiful than they could have ever imagined. Oh, look at that. Looks so pretty. And that is the story of Greta and the giants. So when Greta Thunberg was not that much older than most of you, she found out about something called climate change. And that means that the world's getting a little bit hotter when we burn coal and oil and gas, something called fossil fuels. And this releases a lot of carbon dioxide into the air, and it kind of makes a blanket over the planet that makes everything usually warm up, or it affects the weather. So even a little bit of a degree hotter can cause a lot of problems. It can cause ice to melt up by the glaciers, and it can cause problems when the trees and the forests are being chopped down because, as you probably know, trees and plants use carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. So we need them to use up all those fossil fuel gases that are in the air. Greta knew all of this and she couldn't understand why nobody was doing anything about it. And so she stopped going to school for a little while, and she started to protest. And just like in the story, she made signs and she got friends to come along with her. And she spoke up and got the attention of the giants, of the people that weren't listening. And remember, no one is too small or too young to make a difference. So here's some things you can do to help Greta and help the forests and help with something called climate change, that warming up of the planet that affects the climate. You can learn everything you can about climate change and tell others about it. Tell your friends and your family what you've learned. Ask your parents to take you to protest when it's safe to do so, where you can stand up to the giants. You can write letters with your teacher to people in government that can help speak up on behalf of the forests and the plants and animals. You can support the Audubon Society because we speak up for the plants and animals. We go to the State House and we talk about how we can protect nature and the environment and try to make our voice heard for plants and animals and the places they live. Walk, run, ride your bike instead of getting into a car, so that's less fossil fuels going out into the atmosphere and warming things up. Try to eat a little less meat, maybe, or buy food that's local instead of from far away. Support local farmers and local stores. So these are some things you can do that can help. And I hope you were inspired and you enjoyed learning about Greta and the giants. And thank you so much. Take care, go outside and spend time in nature. And thank you for joining us at Audubon at Home.